So we have a lot of videos on YouTube talking about things like, oh, should you build this character? What light cone should you buy from the Forgotten Hall store? This is not one of those videos. I've been thinking that we lack this kind of video, a more macro style video, which is not so much how to build specific units, how to do specific things, but the ways to approach this game, which will guarantee you success in the long run. So you probably saw the title, How to Fix Your Honkai Star Rail account by yourself, 3 easy steps. I'm just going to spoil it and give you the 3 easy steps right away. Number 1, setting your goal. Number 2, building your characters. And then number 3, staying consistent. Oh wow, that's it, simple. And feel free to click off this video at this point. But if you want to hear me try to justify why I made an entire video, I would just like to start by saying that setting your goal is probably the most important thing that is very underrated as well when playing gacha games, especially games like Honkai Star Rail. What do I mean by that? I feel like for a lot of games, there is a natural end game. Like there is a natural final boss, like in Jump King. You know, the one way to enjoy it is to get to the top of the tower. For Elden Ring, you beat the bosses and so and so. I mean, there are other ways to enjoy those games as well, but there's a very defined, clear end game. And you can say, sure, for Honkai Star Rail, that is Memory of Chaos, being able to clear it with 36 stars. But I feel like these games, by nature, are much more casual, and there's so much appeal in these games just in the characters and stories and cutscenes alone. So there can be an argument that is made, and I mean, this is proof because of how many casual players there are, that you can just play this game just for the characters, just to interact with them, just to unlock the voice lines, just to see them do battle, do their animations. They don't even need to be strong for a lot of people. So it is pretty much a reality that these games are enjoyed in this way as well. And so this video, if you're one of those people, I'm not telling you that you need to fix your account or there's something wrong with it. If you have perfectly fine, good, quality fun, just playing your characters as they are, not worried about things like MOC or pure fiction at all. I mean, Gold and Gears and Storm Disaster could be considered hard, but then for those, you just need strategy. You don't really need to build your characters well. So I won't be talking about them that much, mostly focusing on pure fiction and MOC. I'm not saying if you're a player that just enjoys having your characters all in the same party, regardless of synergy, all your favorite characters running 4 DPSs or 2 healers and 2 supports playing the game. I'm not saying that you shouldn't play this way. All I'm saying is that it's very beneficial to have a goal in mind still. So if this is your goal, I feel like then you shouldn't worry about pure fiction or MOC at all, because once you start worrying about these end game combat modes, then you have to start playing that game. There is no way to want to play your favorite characters only and to be the most efficient in beating these end game modes. Maybe with a lot of time or a lot of money investment, you can do it relatively quick, but for free to play or low spenders, it is pretty much impossible and you either have to choose. So there's a lot of nuance to this, and I don't want to make the video super long. So I'm just basically summarizing it down to this. Either you choose to play for fun and just play all the characters you like, and don't expect to clear pure fiction or Memory of Chaos that well that quickly, or you can go full meta, as in you build characters just based on their strength alone, and you sacrifice playing the characters you enjoy the most. If you're lucky, a lot of the characters that you enjoy may be in the strong character list. You can operate in the middle ground. I'm not saying it's impossible, like kind of building the characters you like while balancing it with being meta. But I feel like this is tricky because unless you know what you're doing, it is very hard to do that. I'm speaking from experience. I tried to do that in Genshin and man, it did not work out. I thought I knew more than I did. So the time it took me to, for example, max star the Abyss in Genshin was way longer than it needed to be if I just focused on clearing the Abyss. Or if I didn't care about it at all and just fully focused on playing the characters I like, those characters would have been stronger as well. So I didn't really get either of what I wanted. That's why I think it's very important to, number 1, set your goal. Feel free to write it down on your notes app or anything. I feel personally, just for me, I'm just sharing this. I am a very physical person. I like to write things down on pen and paper, and I did write a lot of Honkai style things down on pen and paper. Uh, I just like the game. I don't know what to say. Or you can even write it down in your notes app if that's what you prefer. But I feel like for me, it is nice to be able to look at something, be it ink or just words on your phone, and have something just visually that you can see that reminds you of what your goal is. And this helps with really not just setting your goal, but more importantly, sticking to your goal. Because having something that you've written down that you remember seeing now helps you in the long run to kind of stick to it. I know this isn't super like, oh, Honkai style talk. I'm not saying that, oh, this light cone gives you 5% more damage than this other light cone, and that's why you should build it on Jing Liu. I know it doesn't sound like a Honkai style video at the moment, apart from the visuals that you're seeing right now. But basically, what I'm trying to say with the first part, setting your goal, is decide, do you play for the waifus, the husbandos, or do you play to win? The clearer of answer you have, the easier of a time you will have making your account strong. That's just what it is. The clearer your vision, the easier you get to your goal. But there is one exception to this, which is either to time whale super heavily or to money whale super heavily. But I feel like if you are already doing that, this video won't be that helpful for you to begin with. Write down your priorities. You know what? I'll do it with you. I'll do it with you. So I'll write down a real priority of mine at the time of recording this. And that would be, I want to 2-cycle MOC 12 with Xue Yi. That's my current goal. And you could add a time on it, like in 2 weeks or what have you. But for me, this is kind of like my third theme, my mono quantum theme, and my Xue Yi is E3 for me, so I know that when she gets E6, it'll be much easier, so I'm not heavily pushing it. But something I would have written in the past would be, I want to 36-star MOC. That is a very straightforward, definable goal. Or I want to fully build 2 teams. Maybe your goal isn't to clear MOC, but to have 2 teams to take part in MOC to begin with, right? Or I want to fully build Herta and Himeko for pure fiction. So it's whatever goal you want. Usually it is useful to set a ultimate goal or at least have it known in your mind and to have like smaller goals along the way. That's all I'll say on that. I know I'm like repeating, like over repeating myself at this point, but I think it's useful, especially in this game where our direction gets pulled in all different directions, right? There's so many attractive, beautiful characters, and constant updates are being added. There are new events. A new event might come and you're building your AoE characters and it's a single target event, for example, or it's like a DOT character event where those characters shine. And then you might be tempted to build other characters, and what's going to keep you on track for your MOC, for example. What happens every 3 weeks? A new character gets released and they get a new trailer. Everyone's saying they're OP. All the YouTube videos. She's busted, she's OP, she's amazing, right? Or he, that's all you'll see. And you might be tempted. You might really like the character. You might want to pull the character, and you might even pull the character. So having a concrete plan in mind always helps. Even if that plan changes over time, knowing what plan you want is very helpful. And also try not to change it all the time as well. Be like somewhat consistent for the best results. Secondly, build your characters. So I kind of created a relatively easy way to do this, and I call it the STAR method, STAR, for star rail. So the STAR method, I know, very smart. And it stands for strategy, traces, assess, and then relics. Before we go over the patented and licensed method, that will change everything for you. We first have to go over what characters you even decide to build to begin with. Because if you think about it, the first part was just setting your goal. Nothing to do with characters, nothing to do with anything. It's just your goal, what you want to achieve in the game. Maybe your goal was to build a certain character. So in that sense, we did talk about characters, but the general idea was more of like where your account is going. But this is more micro in the sense that now you pick the characters, the tools basically, in which you will achieve your goal. You're almost like an army general, or you're like a manager, and these are your staff. Which staff do you train? Which staff do you use for which situation? And in what order do you raise and build up your staff? And this is all very important and worthwhile to consider and even write down again. I know I'm like a pen and paper salesman or a notes app salesman at this point, but Pretty much, yes, write it down. It really helps. There are like 44 characters in the game. You might have like, not all of them, but you might have like 30 plus. So, how do you decide what characters to use? And I mean, I'm not just saying this, I can literally show you. I have papers of me writing these things down. I feel like if you think something is worth doing, then it's worth doing it well. Pick out 8 to 10 characters that you want to build. If your goal is to do pure fiction in MOC, if that's your goal to clear these hard content where you have to rely on the strength of your character, for this, it is useful to watch guides and things like that on YouTube. I wouldn't focus too much on, oh my god, what are the best characters in Star Rail? Those types of videos, I mean, they can be helpful, but keep in mind your account is different. You don't have every single character in the game on your account. So a good way to start is to look at the characters you want to play the most. If you have no idea about the power level of any characters, or if you have no idea what the strongest characters are and things like that, that's completely fine. A good way to start would to be just picking a character you like and then going to watch guides for them, going to research on Pride One or whatever, like what teams are they played in, for example, just to see if you have the units that are best paired with them. Maybe if you really like Blade, for example, you pulled him on your account and you've been really enjoying using him, but you don't like Bronya that much and basically never built her because of that. You might look at a Blade guide and notice that, everyone is playing Bronya with Blade. So you probably will want to build Bronya because if you look into it, she's his best support. She gives him crit damage, damage percent, all of things that he likes. And she just elevates him to the next level basically. So you would want to build your Bronya and you actually have a Bronya, so that'd be very good for you. So just things like that. See what characters you have in your account and then what teams you can form and then build teams around them. And that's why I focus so much time on talking about setting a goal earlier, precisely for situations like this. You might not like Bronya, but she's Blade's best teammate. And if the goal you written down earlier was to clear MOC 12 with 36 stars, well, unfortunately, you will have to build Bronya. I would say do that over pulling characters that are on banner right now specifically to match characters that you have. You could do that, but in the long run, they will always be releasing new and shiny characters. That would probably work with some of your characters on your account. So you would just be constantly chasing the next thing and the next thing. I think a good way to start is to just take stock of what you have, what you can assemble right now, and then just start assembling it. And if in the future something comes along, like a new character like Sparkle came along and then made Danheng and Bibita Lune and like Jingwen better, then yeah, sure, pull for them. But just be aware that costs Jade, and unless you're spending a lot of money, Jade isn't infinite. Another thing before we get into the star method, patented and licensed, obviously, it's just something to do with like what kind of characters you pick. So if you look at my account, I've built around 15 to 20 characters, but if you really look at it, and I'm aware of this, I only play basically 10 to 12 characters consistently in MOC. In fact, you can pretty much say I only play 8 characters because I really only have 2 main DPSs that I bring in regardless of the enemy's weakness. I like brute force it regardless of enemy weakness types. And that's how I choose to play. That's why I say 8 to 10. Because if you do 10 characters, yeah, you can probably build a bit more DPSs to match weakness types easier to enemies in MOC and Pure Fiction and whatnot. But if you pick 8, you will have limited options with that, but the characters you do build can be stronger. So all the power that I would have used to build the 2 other DPSs could probably go into like, which I did do, into my Jingliu, for example. So she hits harder and can brute force easier. So all of this is to say that you can absolutely just play with 8 characters. And for me, the tip is build harmony characters. Build harmony characters. I pretty much consistently run 3 to 4 harmony units in the 8 unit slots that I have for MOC every single time. Ruan Mei always, Bronya always, Tingyun pretty much always. And now with Sparkle, I think she'll be a consistent person in that lineup as well. And then 2 sustains at a minimum, I would say, to be comfortable. And then the rest, you can either go debuffers, like Pella, very universal, I would recommend. And then your DPSs. If you play dots, that's all your dot units. Or if you play hyper carries, that is your hyper carries like Jingliu, Danheng, and Bibita Lune, and characters like that. Speaking of dots, I would also say that dots are more expensive to build, like dot teams, because they rely on a few sources of DPS because all your DOT units are doing damage. So they all need good relics and they all need good trace levels. Whereas with hyper carries, you can more hyper focus on the carry itself and they will do the majority of your damage. So there's less pressure to gear the other units as much. But that's not to discourage you from going DOT if you really, really want to. It is a very viable and usable composition that is doing really well recently, especially if you have Black Swan. I also want to discuss tier lists. Yeah, I know I've been doing a lot of tier list videos recently. Say what you want about the value of tier lists. It might come as a surprise, but I don't generally think tier lists are the most accurate way to build an account. If that's the right expression, I don't think you should base what characters you should build on tier lists. I think they're a good way to kind of overall see and be a good conversation starter for people in the community to start interesting debates and whatnot. But I don't believe you should build a character just because one is in A tier and then don't build another one because one is in B tier. However, I brought that up because I do think, paradoxically, weirdly enough, that this is the one time that I would look at a tier list. When selecting your first 8 characters to build, all I'll say is if a character is in a D tier in Pride One's tier list and you are in a hurry to clear Memory of Chaos, I probably won't build them. If you have an S plus tier or S tier unit in the Pride One tier list, I'd probably build them over a B or C tier unit. Just saying, at the end of the day, they all can clear, they all can do well. The keyword is with enough investment. How much power, how much time farming will it take for you to get good enough relics for the D tier unit to clear Memory of Chaos? Well, honestly, at the end of the day, that's up to you. What is your time frame? What pace do you want to take it in? But if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you want a fix relatively soon. And so I wouldn't suggest D tier units. Let's start talking about the STAR method. Patented and obviously copyrighted once again. XD Lamau Hihi. S stands for strategy. So strategy basically means go watch YouTube guides. Ask endgame players with builds you really look up to, how they built this specific character that you think they have a good build of. Kind of get an idea of what they do, how they play, understand them. You know, I know this sounds like a crazy proposition, but maybe read their skills in game. Actually, a lot of people don't do this, but you'd be amazed if you don't read your skills, like what you can learn just by reading your skills at least once. You know, I know it takes some time, and I know reading is cringe, but like, you know, just spend 1 minute, go through all the skills just once. You know, you have a general idea of what they do, and that's perfect. You're done. Strategy is done. You are a professional strategist now. That's insane. That's insane. And now you move on to traces. So now you know what they do. You want to help them reach their full potential. Going back to the manager analogy, you're the manager of these people. These people are your talent. These people are your staff. You don't do the work on your own. You want to help them do the best they can. Because at the end of the day, it will also benefit you. It benefits everyone. So if you have a staff member that is really good at boosting the efficiency of your other staff members, although they can do the job on their own, what do you do to them, right? What do you assign them to do? You give them more jobs where they are not the ones directly doing the jobs themselves. Rather, you assign them jobs that allow them to help your other employees do the job. So what is this weird ass analogy? I'm basically saying like for supports like Ting Yun, Bronya, Ruan Mei, level the traces that buff allies. That's their job. Don't level their basic attack. If you're really in a tight spot for resources, there's no point. They're not supposed to do damage on their own. You can level it, but at the end of the day, it's such a small increase in their damage, in a team's overall damage, that it's not worth it. The resources you saved from not leveling could have gone into your main DPS, whose whole thing is doing the job really, really, really well with the help of other people, and they thrive in those situations. So that's why you really want to understand what the characters do and then level their traces. This part also includes leveling their level and selecting a light cone for them. But you essentially do all of this at the trace step because to unlock certain traces, you need a certain level in your character. And in this point, you will probably know what light cone you want to run with them already because you kind of know what they do. And this game is honestly more simple than a lot of us probably think it is. So don't overthink it. I know I used to do. At this point, we can go on to assess. So what is assess? I know it's a bit of a weird one. Assess is assess the situation, think about what you're going to use these characters for. Because at the end of the day, for MOC and Pure Fiction, these things rotate. The enemies in these challenges rotate. So maybe go have a look, go online to have a look, go in game to have a look at what the enemies are. And this comes before the last step, which is Relics, because Relics takes a long time. And you want to invest your resources into relics that will benefit you to achieve your goal right now. So, for example, if there's a fire weak enemy in Memory of Chaos that you're worried about, maybe start farming relics for your fire main DPS first. This is once again a very simple step, but it's often overlooked. We end up just having this idea in our head, okay, we need two teams, we need two teams. These characters are strong. I watched these guides, and these characters are best in these situations, and it's going to be great. I see a whole vision. You build up your Argent, you get all your supports leveled, their traces to good levels, and then you get even their relics, which you spend a lot of time on, but it's worth it because you're going to clap this MOC. You go in, you find out that in floor 12, there's not a single physical weak enemy, and you suffer and you don't clear. In that case, the good news is that the next MOC will probably have at least one side that's physical weak, but he's not doing good this MOC, and that sucks. So yeah, assess. Maybe build a character that enemies are weak to right now, and when the next MOC rolls around and there are physical weak enemies, then build your Argent. And also keep in mind the timer for the cycle of Pure Fiction MOC because these things do go away and you might spend all your energy, all your power farming for a certain level, a certain boss that you realize that once you're done with farming for, it's already gone and it's a new thing. And then finally, of course, relics, the most time consuming thing. At this point, it's just about keeping your mental strong. I hear so many people quitting Star Rail because their relic farming is not going well. Yeah, it's very unfortunate, but if it makes you feel better, I've been farming the new cavern that was released in 2.0 basically every day for 3 weeks. And I don't have a single good piece that I would use on my Acheron when I get her. So it is what it is. I think you get used to it, especially coming from games like Genshin. But if you're still not used to it, the best thing I can say is to just not expect anything. Although it's easier said than done, I think if you don't expect anything, it's kind of like the meme, right? If you don't expect anything, you can't be disappointed. And I think that's true. You just farm not expecting anything. And if you do get something, it's like, wow, my character suddenly is so much stronger now from me not doing anything. Although you technically did use your power, but get into a routine of logging in every day, use your power on relics, then like log out, move on with your day. And yeah, one day you might be surprised. And there's never really an end to relics. So it's also good to know when to stop and your relics can't improve. I think Guoba Certified talks about ideal endgame stat goals for certain characters in his guides. I think that's a good way to know what stat line you should be at before you decide to move on to another character, for example. One thing that I will probably talk about in a frequently asked questions video that I have an idea for, but I will briefly mention right now, is to not underestimate HP and defense. I feel like half the characters in this game, so basically all the supports in this game, benefit from HP and defense. And a lot of the times we lose in MOC is because characters just die. And so don't underestimate HP and defense pieces, especially if they have speed substats and effect resistance substats. I find that effect resistance is such a lifesaver so many times, and speed is generally a great thing to have on supports because they move faster, they apply their debuffs more constantly, they refresh their buffs more constantly, they generate more skill points, or they generate more energy faster because they just move faster. And basically, if you move more within a certain amount of cycles, and there's a cycle limit, you basically get more turns within the amount of cycles it takes to clear MOC. So generally a great thing because if you move more, it means that you have basically more chances to hurt the enemy. Don't underestimate HP and defense pieces and build your supports with them and not damage. Do not build your debuffing supports like Pella or your buffing supports like Ting Yun and Ron Mei with damage. DPS Asta is not worth it, trust me. And finally, staying consistent. This is the simplest sounding, but it's probably the hardest because it is an active decision that you have to make every single day. So I mean staying consistent in two ways. One of which is the straightforward one of logging in every day, doing your dailies, claiming your jade, using your power, not capping your power, stuff like that. Just making it so that you have the maximum amount of resources to work with while building your characters and building your accounts. But the second and probably the harder thing to do is to stay consistent on the build path of your character. I talked about this earlier on a bit already when I talked about how much attractive characters there are and the constant fact that they are releasing new units all the time. It is genuinely hard to stick to a plan of, okay, I want to clear MOC. I am going to build two teams. My first team is going to be a Kafka DOT team with Black Swan, and my second team is going to be a Jingliu Hyper Carry team. I'm only going to build these units, even though I really like Jingwen. Jingwen is my main, but I don't have any of his supports. So I'm not going to build him, but damn, is it tempting to build him? Or damn, I love Yanqing so much. He's like my favorite character, but I'm not going to build him because I decided to build Jingliu because Jingliu will be more consistent in helping me clear MOC faster. Like you have to make this decision every day. You know, it might be tempting seeing 200 power on your account, being like, damn, I could just farm traces for Yanqing right now. You know, he's already level 70. He just needs a bit of traces. I mean, he can go. He's good to go. You know, I can just move over Jingliu's relics onto him. You know, sure, maybe he won't do as much damage as Jingliu, but he'll clear, right? I mean, sure, that's fine, but then you have to build like Japard as well to make sure he doesn't get hit and his HP is never taken, or build Fire MC. And then that comes with its whole host of problems, like do you have a correct light cone for Japard? Not that it matters too much, but do you have the correct light cone for Yanqing as well, which matters more? Stuff like that. So you have to go through the whole process again. And I use this analogy. Okay, so imagine you're in a house, and this is a one-story house, a few rooms, and it's raining outside, it's pouring, and your house is leaking. And this rain won't stop. One way you could go about fixing the house is patching up the roof bit by bit, here and there, in a dispersed manner. So you patch up the roof just a bit everywhere. So in theory, there are less holes, but everywhere in your house is still wet. And the other approach is to just ignore everything else. Just patch up one corner of your house. Maybe it's your room. Just patch up the ceiling of your room. Just spend the whole day doing it. And you spend the same amount of time as you did when you patched up the rest of the house in a dispersed manner. But at the end of the night, when you go to bed, you'll have a roof that's not leaking. You'll have a dry bed to sleep on. Because now, even though the outside everything is still leaking, at least you have your room that is dry and you can fall asleep. Rather than the first scenario where, yeah, there are less leaks now, but there's still not a dry spot in your house. I use this analogy because eventually, sure, the whole house will be fully patched up, no matter what method you use if you work the same amount. But I'd rather do it one room at a time, because in that way, you can start using the room immediately instead of having to wait till the end to use it. And so in that way, you get much more value from the rooms, right? And obviously, the rooms refer to your characters. I'd rather fully build my Tingyun, have her up and running for the next 3 weeks as I build my other characters, than to build all characters at the same time, have 3 weeks of unusable characters, and then at the end of the 3 weeks, yeah, sure, you have a full team that's usable, but what about the 3 weeks before that? You had nothing that was usable. Okay, I'm just assuming people have trouble with this because I sure did, especially in Genshin Impact. The reason my Starrel account is so much better than my Genshin account back when it was 1 year old is just because I learned from my past mistakes. And so I thought I would share with you guys, assuming that this is not a problem that's unique to me. Do let me know in the comments if this helped at all and if any of this made sense actually. Final notes, assuming you only use the power you get every day from logging in to build your characters, I would say to fully max out a character, it takes 3 to 4 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks to do your traces, depending on how much you want to level, and then 2 good weeks to get a good set for your characters, a good relic set for your characters. with good substats. It's a different story if you just want good main stats, but if you want the substats, around 2 weeks average, I think. So that's the amount of time you can expect it will take to build characters. But good news is that we have events and we have the BP if you buy that, and different sources of resources. So it might take less time for you. It probably will. But just from power alone, it will take 3 to 4 weeks to build one character. Just so you have a reference in mind of what to expect. Thanks, guys, for the 200 subscribers. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you so much. This video is kind of a way for me to give back, and hopefully it helped. Okay, I don't want to admit it because it's a bit embarrassing, but the main reason I decided to make this video is probably because I've given up hope on Mr. Pokey ever reviewing my account. So I'm here talking about how you don't need nobody to review your accounts. You can do it on your own, which I do believe. But there is merit in account reviews as well, and learning from them. But at the end of the day, it is harder, honestly, my honest opinion, harder to learn from other people's account reviews and applying it to your own account, because there are nuances and small details in so many factors in this game that make how you would save someone else's account different from how you would save your account, because it's such a unique experience, right? These games wherein our resources and what we have available to us are so vastly different. So unless you have like immense game knowledge already, it is very hard to translate watching other people's accounts being reviewed to saving your own account of the info. So the real option is only to wait for your turn to get account reviewed, and then be helped in that way. And I mean, there are a lot of like great content creators that are helping people already. But yeah, this is a more of a teach them how to fish rather than catching the fish for them type of video. Yeah, this is the way I decided to make it. I love doing account reviews as well. I do them on stream. But yeah, not everyone will get their account reviewed or would even want their account to be reviewed. So yeah, hopefully this video helped. I say hopefully this video helped a lot because I genuinely mean that, and I don't know if my thoughts are being conveyed at all, because this doesn't sound like a typical Star Rail video. If you have tried this and you still need help, hey, I stream and I like reviewing accounts on stream and fixing accounts on stream. So head over to the stream. How many times did I say stream? I don't know. Probably a lot. Come say hi. Once again, thanks for 200 subscribers. We'll see where this goes. I appreciate you, whoever you are watching. Take care. Stay safe. Much love. Bye.